We have a shark specialist with us, among other things. It's really to his credit, and I've got to let him share with us what his area of expertise. But it's not just sharks. As a matter of fact, we have Dr. Joel Fodrie with us this afternoon, who, by the way, is a Carteret Countyan, and so he knows a lot about sharks.
Yep, raised up in Beaufort.
Yeah, the whole issue. But Joel, that's not your expertise. You're in estuarine sciences, aren't you?
Yeah,
And by the way, welcome to the program.
Oh yeah, thanks for having us. Traffic in Moorhead is 5:00. But I got into shark research sort of by accident, just going through long-term newspaper records in the Gulf of Mexico. Actually, started seeing these notes about sharks and thinking about sharks, and then the Institute of Marine Sciences, where I work, started a shark survey in 1972. And I have more or less adopted some responsibility for, being a scientist involved with that. So, but as an estuarine ecologist, guess what? Sharks are a really important part of that system.
You and I have talked on numerous occasions, and I want to thank him for joining us. And by the way, let's introduce our family in here.
Okay, so my wife, Rachel Gitman, is also an ecologist. She's at East Carolina University. And then our daughter Eva, who is 6, and if she can maintain a low volume, it'll be remarkable.
No, don't worry about it. Eva. Yeah. We welcome you. You're going to be talking here in a few moments. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. We were talking about the important role that sharks play in the entire system. As a matter of fact, let's talk about this. You have a regular boat visit. You go out and tag sharks on a regular basis, right?
Yeah, so for over 50 years, we go out every other week, spring, summer, and fall, and we catch bait. We bait 100 hooks on a long line. That line goes overboard, soaks for an hour. We pull it in and count the sharks. We get the species, the sizes, male, female. We do put tags in the sharks. And then we do that process again. So it's 200 hooks every other week, again, for about 160,000 total hooks now.
All right. And what is this shown to you? What is this showing about the nature of the environment?
Yeah, so one thing that the data sort of say kind of boldly is, in the 70s and early 80s, you would catch a lot of duskies, a lot of silkies, occasional bull sharks, some tiger sharks, some hammerheads. Jaws was a watershed event. A lot of people got interested in shark fishing after Jaws. There was some commercialization of shark fisheries in the late 70s. So by the late 80s in our data set, a lot of those big sharks just kind of stopped showing up. We went through the 90s and early 2000s, and we caught a lot of little sharp-nosed sharks, some black-nosed sharks. So these are sharks that are like 3 feet long, not very big. I would say in the last decade or so, now we're 2 or 3 decades into conservation programs to try to help sharks, come back. I see some signs. So we catch more hammerheads than we used to. We've caught a lot of duskies. We catch a fair number of tiger sharks. So we have some species that maybe we've hit an inflection point and the numbers are starting to go back up. And then there's some species like silkies where I have never actually seen a silkie in our survey, where they used to be really common in the 70s and 80s. I've actually never caught one in our survey. So some species aren't coming back too good.
Some of this, though, we've talked about this in the past, gives you some indication of other aspects of the environment.
Correct.
Do they not?
Correct. So for instance, sharks show up as a function of temperature. So they're telling you something maybe about the water temperatures in any given year. To within a degree, that we've had a few years of a lot of white shrimp out there in our survey area. So lots of shrimp boats, at times lots of sharks. At the moment, maybe not as many white shrimp, so not as many maybe finfish, therefore not as many sharks. So the sharks are sort of integrating these signals of their prey resources and some of the temperature type things. So they're both an important driver of the system, and they're an important kind of canary in the coal mine of what the system is doing.
Okay, a benchmark.
They're correct.
Okay, looking at these years of experience that you've had, and of course we can go all the way back to Dr. Frank Schwartz.
Correct.
And how is you're with the Institute of Marine Sciences, UNC Institute of Marine Sciences, and I want to make mention of this very quickly. That's an important situation. That UNC IMS is actually it's a campus of the UNC system, Chapel Hill.
Correct.
The Chancellor Chapel Hill owns the deed to that real estate on Arundel Street in Morehead City. I think that's an important aspect of this. These years of experience with sharks, how does the Institute and the research that you've done, how does that compare to research done elsewhere in the country in the whole field of sharks?
Yeah, so this whole area we're in, the Carteret County area, I mean, researchers have been coming here since the 1800s.
Right.
It's a pretty unique place in terms of a record of what was here, whether it's oysters or sharks. There was a guy named Russell Coles who came and did shark stuff at Cape Lookout, like in the 19 teens and 1920s. He was a friend of like Teddy Roosevelt. So, I mean, so this has always been an area where people have gathered to do coastal research. And now you've got our lab and State's lab and Duke's lab. And we have different areas of expertise. You've got the NOAA lab, you've got the Division of Marine Fisheries. So it's nice to have all these people that can kind of talk about the issues as opposed to each of us being in our own little separate corner. IMS is almost 80 years old.
Wow.
It was initially the Institute of Fisheries Research and was so for the first 20, 25 years. Go ahead.
But how does this rank your work in fisheries? How does this compare to our other other labs, other research institutes doing shark research as well?
Yeah, so globally, in terms of sharks, our survey is arguably the oldest, certainly one of the 2 or 3 oldest anywhere in America. Yeah. VIMS, the Virginia Institute of Marine Sciences, has a survey of comparable age, so we're kind of number 1 or number 2. Certainly when people like NOAA, who tend to manage sharks, when they look for data sets, they're very interested in our data. An individual shark can live for a couple decades. So to understand shark communities or shark populations, you kind of need decades of data, and we're one of the only places that you can find that scope anywhere.
I think that's an important aspect of this. One other comment I want to make before we take a break, and of course Joel is from Carteret County. You know, Joel, there used to be a shark fishery that went all the way up the Neuse River to Newbern.
Sure.
I mean, so there was an active, which is interesting, a shark fishery. Active. And I'm blindsiding you with this question.
Okay, it's a test.
What in the world were they doing with sharks back in the 1800s?
I mean, several things for sure, but the narrative that I've kind of latched onto the most is they were actually tanning shark hides.
Okay.
And they were almost selling kind of like a leather product around the world with using the shark hides.
We have joining us this afternoon Dr. Joel Fodrie. And we were talking to him just a few minutes ago about his expertise in shark fisheries, but you also deal with estuarine areas as well. Am I correct on that? What exactly is the title of your area of expertise?
Yeah, I just refer to it as estuarine ecology. It's usually the fishes and crabs and shrimps, the things we care about ecologically and on our dinner plate, but also the habitats those animals use, the seagrasses, the oyster reefs, the marshes.
Okay. And, of course, you are the director of the Institute of Marine Sciences at here in Carteret County, so IMS.
For the last year, I've been serving as director. We have several faculty, and I do like to advertise that we focus a lot on the natural resources along the coast, but also water quality, storm preparedness and resilience. And underpinning all that is both sort of just general ecosystem dynamics, but also the people that need the system and depend upon the system, the communities at the coast. So those are the areas that we cover sort of corporately.
Okay, let's talk about a recent study that you concluded for the state on the issue of the conditions of North Carolina's coastal resources. What was the result of that? And of course, I want to, Joel, I'm going to step out here and do a little, if you will, prelude and say it was not necessarily designed to address the topic of shrimping and shrimp trawl.
Correct.
There are a lot of people that were looking to that as a...
Sure.
However, there's some information that can be extrapolated from that related to, because one of the great concerns is the condition of the coastal area. And shrimping has been ongoing for our lifetime. You and I grew up here, so it's been ongoing, and it's been a vibrant economy, a vibrant activity. But let's talk about this study that you did. How did it get started? Why did it get started? And what was the outcome?
Yeah, I'll do that. So real quick, that issue of shrimp trawling is a spicy meatball, and maybe we'll go there. But what happened within the state in the last couple of months, it spurred us on to basically issue a summary report.
Right.
So I would like to highlight that at the end of the year, we will submit a full report.
Okay.
It's much more detailed. It has much more methods. It has more data. So, for anybody that's listening or is interested, we have a summary report out. There will also be a longer full report in 4 or 5 months.
Okay.
The General Assembly 3 years ago essentially asked for this analysis because we've been operating under the Fisheries Reform Act, which happened in the 90s. It's sort of the guiding principles for how North Carolina attempts to manage its shellfish and finfish stocks. We're also about 50 years into the Coastal Management Area Act. So these seem like, useful horizons for sort of just looking back and say, well, where are we at? How are we doing? Are there ways to improve, whether those ways are really big swings or just tweaks? And so for the last 3 years, a team of 9 faculty and their students and postdocs, and that's collaborative work. We do collaborate between UNC, NC State, ECU, and UNCW are all involved, looking at various aspects of where we're at currently in the state with our coastal resources, the fish, the habitats, the management structures that we have in the state, what seems to be working, what maybe doesn't work as well as we would like, and then some ideas for how the state might move to make some changes to improve things.
Okay. With that said, were there any conclusions as to the state of the
Yeah, so I'm speaking for a group of 9, and I think there's a lot of agreement on this. If you try to take objective measures of the gears of management that North Carolina applies, and you compare those gears to other jurisdictions, other states, or the federal level, North Carolina has done a lot of good things in terms of having the gears in place that you would think would be useful in producing good outcomes. We use rigorous stock assessments where we try to figure out how the population is doing. That builds toward fishery management plans that are supposed to happen on a regular schedule. It's meant to be very non-ad hoc. And some other places, they manage in a very ad hoc way. The public engagement component, accounting for different ways that fish can be killed in a fishery, whether it's direct capture or the bycatch or discards. All these pieces are accounted for in the process. So North Carolina deserves some credit for thinking about a system that should get good results. The results themselves are not probably what anybody hopes for. I don't think managers or rec fishermen or commercial fishermen or most people look at the overall status of our stocks and say, hey, a grade A, we can move on. There's work to be done. There's room for improvement. What causes that mismatch? Some of it, I think, is related to a lag between when data come in and how those data get applied. There can be years of gap between the data that are being used to try to do the best management possible and the year that we sit in now. And things change from year to year, right, and that's a problem. I think the DMF could certainly be bolstered by greater resources to have the people crunching those numbers, analyzing things, working with the stakeholders to update the management plans. There is clearly, in terms of the data that we collected, a breakdown in agreement and trust. The way that stakeholders view the process, are engaged in the process. The numbers don't look good. I don't think you can put lipstick on that pig much differently. DMF needs resources to find new ways for engagement. And then a third piece is we seem to be losing or degrading a lot of our coastal habitats, whether it's oysters or marsh or seagrass or the water column. The metrics don't look great. We don't have the best understanding of X amount of habitat looking X way equals X amount of fish. So it's hard to have like a very tight linear projection of if we have this much habitat, we'll have this many fish.
Right.
But the trends in the habitats are we have less of it in terms of the structure stuff like oysters or seagrass. The water quality is, some areas are okay, maybe improving. Some areas we just don't have data to even say, and that's concerning. Some large areas that we don't have data to say. And so there seems to be maybe these three pieces. There's this lag in data collection to implementation. There's certainly a trust and engagement issue, and then there's a overall habitat quality piece. And so a lot of the recommendations that we make are designed to really address those three core things.
We're talking with Dr. Joel Fodrie here, and this, by the way, is the initiation of a longer conversation, I'm going to say, with some more folks, Joel, because the aspect of this is important initially for our immediate community, obviously because we're a coastal community, and coastal North Carolina regionally, but I would also say it's important for the state of North Carolina as well, because we have a responsibility. And the other aspect of this, and you mentioned the lag in data, but also you're trying to maintain, it's worse than herding cats. Fish have a tendency to go where they want to go. And there are so many predations, everything from other fish, other animals, let alone the impacts of degradation of the environment or, just changes in temperature. For example, we talked about that related to the sharks. So you've got, your job is trying to, the variables, it strikes me, are so many that it's kind of difficult. You're trying to define those variables in certain categories so that you can at least, if you will, extrapolate the best solutions.
Yeah, so in this case, I would call myself like an academic egghead who's sort of calling balls and strikes on the overall system. The you that does that, those people, the stock assessment scientists, the biologists, the people that are where the rubber meets the road that are really doing that work. An expression that gets used and I'm stealing is, counting up fish is like counting trees, except fish are invisible and they move.
Yeah.
Which makes it a much harder proposition. There are the natural mortalities, there's the fishing mortalities, there's environmental change. And then on top of that, a person could argue, it's debatable, but counting up the fish is its own degree of difficulty, and then you're actually trying to manage the people. Because all of us have different values, we have different wants and needs from these resources, and it's a shared resource. The fish belong to all of us. Right. And that brings in a whole nother level of complication because certainly what happens, in the Piedmont affects, or in the coastal plain affects the habitats that are here. Right. So it's a big connected system. And trying to manage it, whether you're focused on one species like blue crabs or you're moving towards managing the whole system, it's not only the natural part, but it's the people part and the values that we bring. And so data, like a scientist, if I attempt to be a scientist, data needs to be in the room. It needs to provide some guardrails. But then there's a lot of other things too. The reasons that politicians do and maybe need to get involved is because we're making value judgments about the way we want our coast to look. I think we've talked about before, we have the new Interstate 42 coming here. Right. And how do you link that to the health of our fisheries? So sometimes, you can be narrow and focus on fish biology, and that's appropriate. And at the same time, I think we need some gears to have this wider view. Because the century scale trends are more pressures, whether it's more development or more people, and trying to get ahead of that, thinking decades ahead. I don't think we're there yet, and really, we're off the scope of our study because we try to bracket our study with data, and these are more philosophical issues that we know exist.
Joel is the head of the Institute of Marine Sciences at UNC, Institute of Marine Sciences in Morehead City, and he is one of many members of an organization called MSEP, Marine Science Education Partnership. And one of the key members of that is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA. And I get it confused also, Joel, with NOS, National Oceans NOS.
National Ocean Service.
And I'm wondering, is NOS the parent, or is NOAA? I actually.
NOS sits within NOAA, and at our Beaufort lab, we've got National Marine Fisheries Service, or NOAA Fisheries, and we have this NOS group. And the fisheries, it's more of like the counting fish stock assessment group, and then the NOS is more about habitat quality and water quality, harmful algal blooms, spatial planning. So a lot of things that are important for not only here, but the whole nation.
There was an interesting article appearing, and I say an interesting, of course, I'm going to be a little biased in that because I'm involved with the Carter County News-Times.
But I'm going to agree with you.
Thank you very much. Went into great detail about the financial investment, just the financial investment. We can get into the scientific research and the human capital investment of NOAA, but it's easy to quantify dollars and cents. And that is significant, not only for the county of Carteret and all of the various maritime institutes here, Duke, UNC, East Carolina. Your wife works, is a student, a researcher at ECU, Rachel, is that right?
Yes.
Yep, researcher?
Faculty member, yes.
And are you faculty member too?
Yes.
Okay. And so, and then NC State. But it also oversees so many things that impact the state of North Carolina. Coastal Area Management Act, they provide services to that. They provide services to Department of Environment Quality. NOAA is not shall we say, a satellite player. They're not a marginal player in North Carolina. They mean a lot to the state. And of course, now with DOGE and the question about the future of the NOAA lab at Pivers Island, what's your observation about this?
Yeah, no, I mean, the ties run real deep. There were UNC faculty that 100 years ago advocated for a NOAA lab in Beaufort. Reciprocally, it was a NOAA researcher who said, well, UNC should have a marine lab at the coast too. So our origin stories, IMS and the NOAA Beaufort lab, they go all the way back. Present day, in the building at IMS, we have NOAA HAB researchers that are working and collaborating with people in our building that also look at the different water quality parameters and phytoplankton that are out there. And just these HABs, these harmful algal blooms, sorry to use the jargon, where they're happening, whether it's, near here or you hear a lot about Florida, really big economic impacts.
Red Tide, 1987. Yes. I remember it.
Yep.
It shut down not only the fishing industry in Carter County, but the tourist industry.
Right. And the people that are trying to prepare and mitigate for the next red tide are at the Beaufort lab, and in different labs and places like that. But certainly a real strength of the people that we're hosting at IMS. But yeah, I mean, NOAA, as a big name within NOAA, you're going to find Sea Grant. Mm-hmm. Sea Grant supports great research on the fishery side, on the resilient side, on the coastal education side. Locally, we're lucky to have a NERS, the National Estuarine Research Reserve. Ours right here in Carteret County is called the Rachel Carson NERS. As a tourism driver, people that go to Beaufort and they want to look across to see the ponies on Carrot Island, they're looking into the Rachel Carson Reserve.
Right.
And the people that sort of try to understand that system and preserve it are part of the North Carolina Reserve Network and the NERS network. And so, NOAA, given the being the federal level, the people that are here, they're going to go do work in lots of places, bring that information back here. They work here as well on things like marsh resilience, or you may have noticed if you're out there in your boat, more and more there are these living shoreline designs.
Right.
My wife sitting right here does a lot of living shoreline work to try to design better living shorelines. Her collaborators are in the building there at NOAA. So yeah, you can't really you almost can't separate the research among the academic groups, the state groups, and NOAA because it's just so intertwined.
We're wrapping it up. That being said, the fact that NOAA may be threatened is a concern that we should all have. My conclusion.
Yeah, I mean, just from the number of jobs we have here, the people in our communities, the work they're doing. If I've spent more time in the last year following sort of comings and goings in D.C. So I can say that the president's budget had a lot of cuts for NOAA that could directly impact our NOAA lab here on Pivers Island. In the last few weeks, the Senate has come out with their sort of budget numbers, and they're trying to fund NOAA at historical levels.
Okay.
The House has sent some signals that they also are less inclined to make big cuts to NOAA. So it's still being decided right now. And if you feel like if you're listening and have a dog in the fight, now would be the time to contact your reps because they're deciding now. And it's certainly kind of up in the air. I'm optimistic with some recent signatures, with recent signals, but nothing has been signed yet.